Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Yes. Awesome. Well, hello. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Yacine, and I'm an associate on the data and measurement team at FP2030. So today I am excited to be here on a panel with our two panelists. But first, I do want to take a second to mention that FP2030 is based on the principle that all people, no matter how they identify, should have access to a full suite of reproductive health care. And so oftentimes the LGBTI community is overlooked, and it's assumed that since they are a small group that they don't need to be included. But they are a key population and are at heightened risk for risk of pregnancy, HIV acquisition, and also gender-based violence. So now I'll have the pleasure to introduce this panel on meeting the needs of LGBTI groups. Our first speaker is Mitchell Warren, the Executive Director at AVAC, and we also have Medha Sharma, the President of Visible Impact. And in a second, we will have video remarks from Susana Chávez, which is the Executive Director of PromSex Peru. So first, I'd like to turn it off to Mitchell.
Hi there. Thanks so much for having me. And I am so glad that this is even on the agenda of this meeting. I run an organization, as you heard, called AVAC, which works primarily in HIV. And so often, I think we live in silos. Whether we go to HIV conferences or family planning conferences, whether we go to human rights meetings or technology meetings. And I think what's so important is that this session is happening here at the International Conference on Family Planning. Because at the end of the day, it's not about the technologies or about the conferences you go to or about whether you are at risk of HIV or an STI or an unintended pregnancy. It's about who you are, who you want to be with, who you want to have sex with, how you want to have that sex. And when we understand that, and you hear, I think perhaps already just in day 1.5 of the conference, the idea of people-centered is probably one of the most dominant themes here. And if we're really true to that, it means not just centering people in our silo, if we work in HIV or family planning, but it's about centering people irrespective of who they are and who they love. And I think that's really where we need to meet people, where they are, not where our programs are or where our conferences are. It's about meeting people with what they need and want, and when they want it, where they want it, and from whom they want it in terms of information and the activities. And that's been AVAC's desire, to really think about not just the development of new technologies, whether for HIV or for contraception, but about delivering those so that people can make choices that work for them. And that's really what it's about, whether you are within the LGBTIQ community or not. And we have to think about that if we're really going to be true to the idea of centering people.
Thank you so much, Mitchell. And I do want to hear a little bit more about those technologies in our discussion. But now let's have a chance to meet our next speaker over video. Let's meet Susana.
Que tiene como propósito que todas las personas ejerzan sus derechos sexuales y reproductivos, y en especial el acceso a servicios de salud sexual y reproductiva sin ningún tipo de discriminación. El concepto que actualmente tenemos de la salud sexual y reproductiva nos permite abordar respuestas integrales a las distintas necesidades que tienen las personas, y en particular las mujeres y las poblaciones diversas. Sin embargo, este concepto, que aún no logra ser mayoritario, y en muchos de nuestros países se siguen brindando servicios dentro de un marco de la fragmentación y la verticalidad, encasillando a las personas LGTBI a problemas muy específicos como el VIH, negando así otras dimensiones o necesidades que tienen en su vida. Y es que las personas LGTBI, como todas las personas, tienen aspiraciones sexuales y reproductivas que tienen que ser atendidas. Seguramente, si así hubiésemos enfocado la atención del VIH, hoy tendríamos mejores resultados y personas que probablemente pudieron ser mucho más felices. Desde nuestra fundación, como PromSex, decidimos no solo integrar la diversidad de la identidad y orientación sexual, sino también de los ciclos de vida de las personas. Y es así como nuestros proyectos tales como Adelante con la Diversidad o Nosotrans y otros que hemos ido desarrollando a lo largo de ese tiempo, nos han permitido ampliar en investigaciones que han ido mostrando esta realidad, pues las personas LGTBI también necesitan de consejos para tomar sus propias decisiones, necesitan de orientación e insumos anticonceptivos. Pueden tener un embarazo no deseado o a lo mejor quieren tener hijos. Hay quienes que probablemente estén buscando más expresiones de género específicas y necesiten un apoyo y orientación para hacer que esos cambios se hagan de manera segura, necesitando así asistencia para usar las hormonas. Las personas LGTBI necesitan, como todas las personas, servicios que fortalezcan su autonomía, proveedores de salud que respeten sus decisiones y lugares de atención que estén libres de violencia, estigma y discriminación. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Susana. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to come to the conference, so we won't have her participate in our discussion, but it's great to have representation from the LAC region. So finally, I do want to introduce Medha. So please.
Hi, everyone, and namaste. I'm Medha Sharma. I'm the president of a young women-led organization in Nepal called Visible Impact, and we are a very strong alliance for the LGBTI movement. We've been advocating for legalization of same-sex marriage in Nepal and also training youth, young sexual and gender minorities to be advocates at the local level. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I do want to pose some questions to you both. Our first question is, why do LGBTI groups need tailored sexual and reproductive health resources? So Mitchell, over to you.
Great. Well, thank you. And, you know, it's a great question. And it really comes back to this idea of everybody needing programs and services tailored to their needs. And I think particularly, and again, I work very much in the HIV community where we talk about key populations. And that's a euphemism, really. I think of key populations as anyone who is underserved and overburdened with, whether it's about stigma, whether that's about a health issue. And so when we think about tailoring services, it's really about trying to make sure that they are properly and appropriately served and that they're no longer overburdened. And I think particularly, and you saw it in Susana's video comment just now, this issue of stigma and discrimination. This is not just about HIV. This is about lifestyle, and this is about people making choices. And when we stigmatize and discriminate and even criminalize, we automatically are debilitating our ability to deliver public health. And so for me, delivering those tailored services is, again, meeting people where they are and making sure it's in a way that meets them and getting them what they need when they need it. And recognizing that they're not just a population category. And I think sometimes we use these terms that actually reinforce some of that stigma. And it's really about basically everybody needing a program and a service tailored for them.
I agree. And I think meeting the needs of these communities ends up meeting the needs of all populations. So that's a great point. So Medha, would you like to add on?
Yeah. You know, I have been advocating for this issue for almost a decade. And the reason I advocate is it's for my friend, right? It's my friend Samyak, who wants to get married to his gay partner, but Nepal's law does not allow him to do so. It's for my friend Ria, who is lesbian, but she wants to start a family of her own through assisted reproduction, but we do not have that environment and technologies. It's for my friend Anna, who was going through hormonal therapy after sex change. But she had to discontinue because hormones were in short supply during COVID-19, and then she had the risk of like the surgery going wrong because hormones were not available during the pandemic. The thing is, the LGBTI plus population is overlooked in the conversation about family planning, while they are the group with one of the highest unmet need. And if you're talking about young sexual and gender minorities, they are often found to have inadequate knowledge, inadequate access. Most of them cannot go to receive the services because there's so many hurdles and burden. But those who even cross those barriers and reach the service point, most of the time they have been reported to be denied for the service because the providers believe that contraception is not required for LGBTI plus population. So in Nepal, we have started hormonal clinics targeting LGBTI plus population because we believe that contraception is not only about preventing pregnancies but also about allowing individuals to make their choices.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate you sharing how this is not just for you, but it is for your friends. And I think a lot of us definitely resonate with that. So just my second question, and might be my final, is how can we ensure that the needs are represented, or their needs are represented in national commitments?
Yes.
Go ahead.
One strong recommendation I would like to borrow from one of my friends who shared in another session is the term, family planning itself is kind of questionable when you're talking about LGBTI plus people, because the word family, it's defined as between men and women, and then the family planning is a very broad term, but the contraception part, it's more we need to redefine how do we define the family planning word itself. The another recommendation, another thing I would like to share is the LGBTI movement globally has come a long way. But right now, what they need is stronger alliance. I think that's part is kind of missing. So I commit to support LGBTI through this stage, and I urge everyone present here to do the same as well and see the value in investing in that. Thank you.
That was great. I'm sorry I asked her to go first, actually. Hard act to follow. I think I would add three things about what needs to happen at a national level. One is break the silos. I think very often, and picking up on what you said, LGBTI issues are not unique about LGBTI. They're about issues that cut across communities and all of those dynamics. And it's not about family planning. It's not about HIV. It's about all of that together. So break the silos. The second, and I'm so glad you're sharing this as someone who works in the data team at FP2030, follow the data. This is not just a nice to have. This is about following the data of why this matters and why working with all communities, where they are, when they want to engage and how they want to engage is critical. And the third is doing it all with the rights-based approach. That we think a lot about commodities in family planning. We think about it in HIV. This is not about procuring products alone. This is about programs that are meeting the needs of people and fundamentally not only following the evidence, but being rights-based so that people are able to make decisions themselves in a self-care, empowered, dynamic way that's about the person, not about the product or even about the program.
Yeah, thank you both so much for these great points. Honestly, I think the audience has appreciated. I certainly have appreciated learning from you and from Susana. I do want to just quickly close here at this conversation and piggyback on, the fact that family planning programming should be rooted in human rights, and that people should not be discriminated against their gender or their partnerships. That should not be part of the reason that they are deciding on family planning methods and contraception. So thank you both for sticking to that. And also we encourage the audience members to keep this in mind when you are thinking about your own family planning programming. So thank you all for coming to this panel, and we appreciate it.